Tonight, we're learning new information in the Ashley Flynn murder case. Caleb Flynn, Ashley's husband, has been indicted by a grand jury on multiple additional felony charges. This just a little more than a month after Ashley was killed in her Tip City home.
The voice on the phone knows exactly how many times she was shot. 2 to the head. He says it clearly, specifically, while everything else sounds like chaos. The dispatcher keeps asking the same questions, over and over. The man on the phone sounds frustrated, not at what happened, at the questions. His daughters are sleeping. He mentions that, but he didn't check on them. Not until the dispatcher asked, not until minutes had passed, not when someone with a gun was supposedly somewhere in his house. The door to the garage was wide open, he says. He knows this, he's certain about this. But where was he when the shots were fired? That part he never actually says. If you're drawn to cases where the truth hides in the smallest details, you're in the right place. Subscribe to Real World Crime Files, because some stories don't reveal themselves all at once. It's February 16th, 2025. Tip City, Ohio. A quiet cul-de-sac just north of Dayton. The kind of neighborhood where people know each other's names, where children play outside, where nothing like this is supposed to happen. At 2:30 in the morning, a call comes in. A woman has been shot, twice, in her own bed. Her husband is on the phone. He sounds desperate. He sounds specific. And those two things don't always go together. When police arrive minutes later, they find Ashley Flynn in the master bedroom. 37 years old, a 7th grade volleyball coach, a teacher, a volunteer, a mother to 2 elementary-age daughters, someone who spent her life helping others. She's been shot twice in the head. 2 shell casings lie on the bedroom floor. The children are asleep down the hall, unharmed, still sleeping. Caleb Flynn, Ashley's husband, meets police at the door. He lets them in. He's cooperative. He signs the consent forms. They can search the house. They can take his DNA, his fingerprints, whatever they need. He tells them what happened. Someone broke in, through the garage, came upstairs, shot his wife, and disappeared into the night. Police put drones in the air. K-9 units sweep the area. Officers canvass the neighborhood. They're looking for a killer who just fled the scene. Someone dangerous, someone armed. They find nothing. No footprints, no witnesses, no trace. The police chief makes a statement that morning. He calls it a burglary gone wrong. He tells the public to be cautious. It's a tragedy, he says. A terrible, random act of violence. And for 48 hours, that's the story everyone believes. Caleb Flynn wasn't just a husband. He was a figure people recognized. Back in 2013, he stood on the American Idol stage, cameras on him, millions watching. And he said something that would be quoted again and again in the days after Ashley's death.
I love my wife more than anything. She is very, very pretty. I love her.
I love my wife more than anything. She is very, very pretty. I love her. He smiled when he said it. The kind of smile that seems genuine. The kind that makes people believe you. He was a former pastor, a musician in the church band. He and Ashley met at a private Christian college in Tennessee. They built a life together. 2 daughters, a home in a safe neighborhood, a community that knew them, trusted them. When news broke that Ashley had been killed, that community rallied. A GoFundMe was launched within hours. Caleb's picture at the top. A family photo. The description asked people to pray for him, for the 2 daughters, for this devastated family. The donations poured in. Over $115,000 in days. People brought meals, sent messages, offered support. A public memorial service was scheduled at the church where Caleb and Ashley had once served on staff. Everyone wanted to help the grieving widower, the single father, the man who had lost everything in one terrible night. No one suspected him. Not yet. Stories like this don't unfold the way you expect. If you want cases that make you question everything, hit that subscribe button. New episodes every week on Real World Crime Files. But while the community mourned, investigators were listening to something the public hadn't heard in full. The 911 call. 11 minutes of audio. Caleb's voice. The dispatcher's questions. And somewhere in those 11 minutes, details that didn't quite fit. Detectives play 911 calls over and over. Not once, not twice. Dozens of times. Because the first time you hear someone in crisis, you hear the emotion. But the 10th time, the 20th time, you start hearing something else. You hear what they're saying and what they're not. Caleb Flynn told the dispatcher his wife had been shot twice in the head.
My wife, she's got 2 shots to her head. There's blood everywhere. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
He said it early in the call, before he was asked, before he would have necessarily known if he wasn't the one who pulled the trigger. He told them the garage door was wide open. That's where the intruder came in, he said. He was certain about this, but when did he check? When did he have time to notice the garage door while his wife was bleeding out in the bedroom? The dispatcher asked about the children, multiple times. Are they okay? Have you checked on them? Caleb hadn't. Not until asked, not immediately. His daughters were somewhere in that house. And according to his story, so was a man with a gun who had just killed their mother. But Caleb didn't go to them first. Retired NYPD detective David Sarney later listened to the call. He noted something specific, something that stands out to anyone who has worked these cases. If you're worried about your wife bleeding out and you're getting upset about the dispatcher asking questions, that's unusual, he explained. And knowing how many gunshot wounds, saying 2 shots to the head that specifically, that's something that stuck out. Where was Caleb when those shots were fired? If he was in the room, why didn't he say that? Why didn't he describe seeing it happen? Why didn't he mention trying to stop it, trying to help, trying to understand what was happening? If he wasn't in the room, how did he know it was 2 shots? How did he know the intruder came through the garage? How did he piece together a complete narrative in the minutes after finding his wife dead? These aren't accusations. They're questions. The kind of questions that investigators ask themselves in the hours after a crime. The kind that don't have easy answers. The kind that make you listen to an 11-minute phone call 30, 40, 50 times. The scene itself raised more questions than it answered. Ashley was in bed, shot twice. 2 shell casings on the floor nearby. No signs of a struggle in the bedroom. Nothing overturned, nothing disturbed. The garage had a side door. That door was blocked by a large refrigerator. According to Caleb's account, the intruder moved that refrigerator, got inside, went to one of the cars in the garage, opened the center console. That's where Caleb kept a handgun. The intruder allegedly took that gun, went into the house, went upstairs, went to the master bedroom, shot Ashley Flynn twice while she slept, then left. All without waking 2 children sleeping in the house. All in a quiet neighborhood where gunshots would echo. Detective Sarney addressed this too. In that neighborhood, you would hear 2 shots. It's a very quiet area. And the fact that the children never woke up, that's something you're thinking about. Burglaries happen. Home invasions happen. But this pattern was unusual. Most burglars avoid confrontation. They want to get in, take valuables, get out. They don't want to wake anyone. They don't want to fight. They definitely don't want to commit murder. Nighttime burglars are considered the most dangerous because confrontation is more likely. But even then, the violence is usually reactive. Someone surprises someone. Panic happens. A weapon is used. But going straight to a bedroom, shooting a sleeping victim twice in the head, taking nothing, that's not a burglary gone wrong. That's targeted. 48 hours after Ashley Flynn was killed, the police chief made a second statement. This wasn't a burglary. This was a targeted murder. and the public was not in danger. That second part is what made people start asking questions. If it was targeted, who was the target? Ashley? Or someone else in that house? If the public wasn't in danger, that meant the killer wasn't a random criminal roaming the neighborhood. It meant the killer had a specific reason to be at that house, a specific reason to kill. The FBI was called in. That doesn't happen for random burglaries. That happens when a case is complex, when resources are needed, when federal investigators see something that requires their attention. The community started to feel the shift. The narrative was changing, and no one was saying why. The GoFundMe stayed active. The memorial service was still scheduled. Caleb was still the grieving husband in the public eye. But behind the scenes, detectives were building something. 72 hours after Ashley Flynn was murdered, Caleb Flynn was arrested. The charges: murder, 2 counts of felonious assault, 2 counts of tampering with evidence. The community fractured. Some couldn't believe it. This was Caleb, the man who loved his wife on national television, the pastor, the father, the man they'd been supporting, donating to, praying for. Others remembered the details, the 911 call, the strange specifics, the questions that never had answers. The GoFundMe page was edited, Caleb's picture removed, the line about praying for her husband deleted. Now it was just for the daughters, for Ashley's memory. The memorial service was canceled. The church issued a statement. The families had requested privacy. An invite-only event would be held instead. Ashley's family released their own statement, carefully worded, heavy with grief. Our hearts are shattered. Ashley brought endless light to our world, and we are trying to navigate this immense loss. Our family believes this arrest was made carefully and not without serious consideration. After speaking with both local and federal authorities, we trust the proper steps were taken and the process is being handled appropriately. We are clinging to our faith just as Ashley did each and every day. They didn't proclaim his guilt, but they trusted the investigation. This is the kind of case that changes the way you see everything. If you want more stories that challenge what you think you know, make sure you're subscribed to Real World Crime Files. In court, Caleb Flynn stood before a judge. His bond was set at $2 million cash. If somehow he made that bond, he would not be allowed contact with his daughters. Those 2 little girls were now with other family members. Safe, but living in a reality no child should face. Caleb entered a not guilty plea. His attorney made a public statement. He called it a rush to judgment. He said Caleb looked forward to defending the case. He expressed concern about the timeline, about the investigation focusing on the surviving spouse when leads ran out. When the government runs out of leads or can't develop leads, and looks at surviving spouses in cases such as these, the chance of a wrongful conviction increases, the attorney said. It's a fair point. It's happened before. Wrongful convictions exist, and in murder cases, when there's no clear suspect, investigators do look closest to the victim. Statistically, that's where the answers often are. But statistics aren't evidence, and proximity isn't proof. So what did investigators actually have? They haven't released everything. That's normal. Cases in progress don't show their full hand, but there are pieces we can see. The 911 call, 11 minutes of audio that raised questions from the beginning. The specificity, the timeline. The knowledge of details that seem hard to explain. The scene itself. The lack of forced entry beyond what was reported. The shell casings. The bullet trajectory. Where the shooter would have had to be standing to fire those shots. Whether that matches where Caleb said he was. Forensic testing. Gunshot residue on hands. It's testable. It's measurable. But it can also be washed off. Timing matters. Phone records. What calls were made before the incident. What texts were sent. What the phone was doing in the hours and minutes leading up to 2:30 a.m. Fingerprints on the shell casings. It's possible. Not guaranteed, but possible. If they exist, they tell a story about who loaded that gun, who fired it, the consent Caleb gave, his cooperation, his DNA, his prints, his willingness to let police search. Does that suggest innocence? Or does it suggest confidence that nothing would be found? There are no easy answers there. Guilty people have been cooperative before. Innocent people have refused searches before. Behavior in crisis doesn't follow a script. But something in that collection of evidence was enough. Enough for an arrest. Enough for murder charges. Enough for the FBI to get involved. Enough for local detectives to work 72 hours straight building a case they believed would hold. Two versions of this story exist, and only one can be true. In one version, Caleb Flynn is a grieving husband, a devastated father, a man who lost his wife to a violent intruder and is now being falsely accused because investigators needed someone to blame. A man whose life is being destroyed twice, first by the murder, now by the system. In that version, he called 911 in panic. He gave details because he saw the scene. He knew what happened because he found his wife. He was cooperative because he had nothing to hide. He was specific because trauma does strange things to memory. He loved her, he lost her, and now he's losing everything else. In the other version, Caleb Flynn killed his wife. He shot her twice in the head while she slept. He staged a burglary scene. He called 911 and performed grief. He knew exactly what to say because he'd planned what to say. He was cooperative because he thought he'd been careful. He was specific because he was trying to control the narrative. In that version, the 911 call wasn't a cry for help. It was a script. And somewhere in that script, he made mistakes. Both versions can't be real, but right now, both exist. The evidence will decide. A trial will decide. A jury will decide. But for now, we're left with questions that don't have public answers yet. What we know for certain is this. Ashley Flynn was 37 years old. She was a teacher, a coach, a volunteer, a mother. Someone who brought light to people's lives. Someone who was, by every account, kind. She was killed in her own bed, in her own home, in the middle of the night, while her two daughters slept nearby. Those two daughters lost their mother on February 16th. 3 days later, their father was arrested for her murder. If he's innocent, those children are living through the unimaginable. Their mother dead, their father wrongly accused, their family destroyed by a killer who's still free, and an investigation that went in the wrong direction. If he's guilty, those children are living through something worse. Their mother killed by their father, the person who was supposed to protect them, the person they trusted most. There's no version of the story where those two little girls are okay. The case is still unfolding. A preliminary hearing has been scheduled. Evidence will be presented. Arguments will be made. Caleb Flynn maintains his innocence. His attorney is preparing a defense. The prosecution believes they have enough to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Ashley's family believes the arrest was made carefully. But belief isn't the same as knowing. And right now, the public doesn't know everything investigators know. We know the 911 call raised questions. We know the scene didn't match a typical burglary. We know the timeline has gaps. We know two children slept through gunshots. We know the garage door, the refrigerator, the center console, the bedroom, the shell casings. We know Caleb said 2 shots to her head in the first minutes of that call. We know he didn't check on his daughters until prompted. We know the community believed him until they didn't. We know investigators listened to that call dozens of times. And somewhere in those 11 minutes, they heard something that changed everything. What exactly did they hear? That's the question that will define this case. Because in the end, the truth isn't about what we believe happened. It's about what can be proven. And right now, 2 realities exist. The one where Caleb Flynn is a killer, and the one where he's a victim. The evidence will decide which one is real. But the call, The call is already recorded. The words are already spoken. The details are already there. And you can't take back what you've already said. If you want more cases that don't give easy answers, that sit in the tension between what's known and what's suspected, subscribe to Real World Crime Files. Hit the bell for notifications. And let me know in the comments what stood out to you in this case. Because sometimes the smallest detail is the one that matters most.